In the preceding videos of this tutorial series, we have put in place all the basic building blocks for your deterioration model. We are now finally ready to run our model as a full trigger model. So in this video, we will show you how to select the trigger model type and how to set up a simple ranking index for your model and then run your model and view the results. So let's go back to our DMS file and start from there. So here I am in my DMS file, and you will recall at the end of our last video, we pointed out that even though you have triggers set up for your treatments, and you also have a budget constraint defined, the treatment assignment mode for your model is currently set to none, meaning that no treatments will actually be modified in your ForwardWorks program. Now, to switch to a real trigger model, you have to pick from one of the basic model types that JunoViewer provides for you. And what we are going to choose for this video is the very simple model, but quite an effective one, called the ungrouped ranked cost constraint model. So the cost constraint element is the budget that you have already defined in the last video, and we are going to look in this video at the ranking component of it. Now, just a word on these different model types that you find in this drop-down. If you go to the JunoViewer help forum, and in the help forum you type in treatment assignment, then you will find in these help posts here, towards the bottom, you will see a help post called treatment assignment mode in the DMS file. And if you open that up, you will see a more detailed description of how each of these different model types works. And so that's just a good reference to take note of. So going back to the DMS file, what this model requires for us is to set some form of ranking. And we specify a model parameter that is the one that comprises of our ranking index. Now you can rank on anything, any model parameter that has been defined in your model. So for example, if we want to, we can rank on rut depth values or surface age. And to do that, you simply go to the General tab, and down here where it asks you for the work section ranking parameter, you type in the name of the model parameter that you want to rank on. So for example, if you want to rank just based on the rut depth, I will just take that parameter name there, and I will place it in here, and I will rank on that parameter. However, one of the big criticisms of a ranking-based model is that you tend to treat only the worst sections first, whereas in reality, you also want some sections to have a high priority if it's a good idea to place a surface seal on it and so forth. And so it's very easy to overcome the worst first criticism of the ranking model by just building a more intelligent ranking index. For example, in our treatments that we defined in the one or two videos ago, you will recall that we set the trigger flag such that if the surface age is above 8 and the rut depth is less than 12, then a seal will be triggered. And similarly, if the rut depth was bigger than 15, then a rehabilitation will be triggered. So we've got two modes of treatment selection. One is based on late surface age, where we want to do a seal, and the other one is based on a rehabilitation. So it's easy to build a more intelligent ranking index by ensuring that your ranking index algorithm is congruent with the trigger values and the trigger parameters that you have defined in your trigger model. So for example, if I want to add a more intelligent ranking parameter, I can go to the parameter sheet. I just copy one of these parameters and paste it in to create a new one. And this one I'm going to call the rank parameter. So just follow along with me and see how I construct this equation. So the rank parameter I'm going to construct as follows. All right, so let's look at this equation in detail. This equation says, if my surface age is bigger than 8 and my rod depth is less than 12, then my ranking will be based on the surfacing age. If, however, my rod depth is bigger than 15, then my ranking will be based on the rod depth. If none of these conditions are satisfied, my ranking will be 0. And that's what I want, because I'm not going to trigger any treatment in any event. So let's test this. What I'm going to do is just to multiply this by a factor of 10 so that I get a bigger number. And I'm going to test it. What if my surface age is 12 and my rod depth is 10? Then you can see I'm going to get a factor of 120. If my rod depth is 13, for example, then I will get a 0 because I'm not triggering a rehab or a surfacing. If my rod depth is low, let's say 5, and my surface age is 12, then I have my surface age. Otherwise, if my surface age is 14, then the surface age will increase comparatively. If my rod depth is above 15, like 70 or 17 or something like that, my rank parameter will be tied directly to the rod depth. So you can see how easy it is with a simple formula like this to build a ranking parameter that is more intelligent than just worst first. Because this ranking parameter will definitely favor areas where there is a low rod depth and a high surface age, above areas where there is a higher rod depth but a low surface age, provided that the rod depth is not above 15. So this is going to be the initial value that's calculated for the rank parameter. Then I also have to provide an equation for the rank parameter to be calculated as the model progresses. So in this case, what I'm going to do is to, instead of using an increment, I'm going to just recalculate next year's rank parameter directly by setting the increment type to not applicable, use next value. And then here, under next value, I need to put the equation. And I want to use the same equation as I had there, so I can copy that equation down here. But in this case, I don't want to use the values at the start of the year. I want to actually use the values at the end of the year. So instead of using these parameters, surface age, I want to use surface age end. So, and similarly, instead of using parameter rut, I want to use parameter rut end. So I can edit this equation directly by just putting that end in there in each of these cells. There, I've corrected it now. So I can also test this one. So for example, if looking at the placeholder for the new value at the end of the year, if my surfacing is age is 14 and my rod depth is 17, then in this case the rehabilitation will be favored, so it will be based mainly on the rod depth. Whereas if my rod depth is a low value, let's say 6 millimeters, and my age is 14, then the ranking will be based on the surface age. All right, so that's all I need to do is to design a rank parameter like that. Now, it's quite possible that your rank parameter may be more complex than this. You may be using something like a chained lookup function or a more complex technique, such as a machine learning techniques of nearest neighbor or something like that. But for this video, I'm just going to use this as an example. Now, there's one more thing that I need to do. Since this is going to be my rank parameter, I have to set that up on the general sheet down here. So I can just copy this name because I have to make sure I enter that same name exactly. And here where it says work section ranking parameter, I'm going to paste that name in there. And once again now, just as we did before, I can save this model setup. I go back to JunoViewer. I go to the settings menu, I go to forecast models, and I'm going to choose this small demo model. So I will upload my updated DMS. And now I can check my model, and it is giving me a problem here where it says the rehabilitation selection parameter named surface age was not found in the list of model parameters. Check the general sheet. Now this is just a functionality for rehabilitation selection using a built-in lookup functionality. We're not actually using that, so I'm just going to correct that in my DMS. So this parameter here, rehab selection, is the problem. So all I'm going to do is just enter a valid model parameter in there. It's not really used in this model. So I'm just going to put a RUT in there. And that should fix that problem. So I save that. I go back to JunoViewer. Once again, I will upload my model. And I can check it. And this time all the checks pass. So I am going to run my trigger model now. But before I do that, I want to make sure that any treatments that I have placed in an earlier model run will be removed. And there's a handy reminder here to do that by switching this flag on. This says I am running a trigger model repeatedly. Prompt me to clear treatments before a run starts. So I'm going to say run trigger model, and here's the prompt, and I have to select to delete all existing treatments before starting and applying committed treatments. So I'll just click on this clear all treatments before starting modeling run. And here my model run has now started. So my model run is completed. I can go to the views menu and go to forecast view. And here you can see now the output of the model where some treatments have actually been applied. If you compare this output to the one which we showed at the end of the previous video, you will see that here there are definite treatments that have been applied, and these treatments have significantly changed the condition of the network. You can see much less red and yellow, etc. Now in this case, remember, we're running this basically against an unconstrained budget, so a lot of treatments will be applied. Or if we don't have such a high budget, then of course the treatments will be much less depending on how much budget we have available. But you can see that the model is very simple and straightforward to actually trigger treatments. And from here, we can go and look at, in the summary sheet below, we can look at the summary of all the seal and rehab treatments that have been triggered and so forth. Now, quite often, when you are running a model like this and you're looking at your triggers, you may see some things, some inconsistencies or discrepancies between your data and what was triggered. This is a very common aspect of developing a deterioration model, and JunoViewer has a very handy tool available for you to analyze this trigger model and make changes to your DMS so you can correct mistakes in your model. And I want to just point you, if you go to our Lonrix channel on YouTube, and you just click on the Lonrix channel and you go to the videos tab, then there is a video called JunoViewer Trigger Model Analyzer Intro. And I can strongly recommend that if you got as far as this stage of the video series, please go and have a look at this video and get yourself acquainted with the Trigger Model Analyzer. It's a very powerful tool to find problems and bugs in your deterioration model. So in this video, we showed you how to run a trigger model with a budget constraint based on a simple ranking. In our next video, we will look at a more sophisticated, but not necessarily a better type of model that is based on economic evaluation and optimization. If you are following along with this video series and have any questions or comments, please feel free to contact us via email at info@lonrix.com. Thanks for watching.